Coming up on Work It Out with Lauri, we'll be talking about how to disrupt the cycle of abuse and how to identify early signs of bullying at work.
All that and more on Work It Out with Lauri. Howdy, WVP crew. Welcome to Work It Out with Lauri, the no-nonsense show for anyone navigating workplace bullying, chaos, or straight-up dysfunction. I'm Lauri Lilly, your host. I'm here to help you make sense of all the drama you're experiencing at work.
And I'm Cosmo Esplin, Sir Showrunner and your backstage guide, directly providing Lauri with your questions and workplace dilemmas so you get the practical solutions you need. So what do you say? Let's work it out. Welcome back, everyone, once again to the Work It Out with Lauri podcast. This is episode 3, and we're really going to get into the weeds on this one as well.
Yes, we are.
Yes. So, welcome once again, Lauri Lilly.
Thanks so much, Sir Showrunner. I'm ready. What do you have for me today?
All right, ready for me to pelter the question at you?
Go for it.
All right, here we go. Okay, so this person is using their real name, Lauri. Sound familiar?
Yep. This isn't from me.
Nope.
I pinky swear.
Not related. Nope. And she is wondering, quote, how can we avoid the bullying pattern to repeat? How to spot and avoid bullying before it happens again. From someone who had to resign 3 times from 3 different workplaces in the last 6 years due to bullying behaviors. Thanks. That's an unfortunate track record, I have to say.
That's absolutely brutal and unfortunately all too common. Really is, Cosmo. And I'm really passionate about this particular topic because it is a very serious problem, this idea that the cycle continues and continues. And I'm a firm believer that there are things within our control and things outside of our control, but that we can do our best to minimize the potential impacts of those things that we can't control. I've identified what I think can be a common experience for individuals who have been targeted, who get into a cycle, okay? And of course, with any model or cycle, there's always going to be nuances, deviations, and things like that. But generally speaking, this is what I have seen happen in my experience. You get targeted by a bully. Within that alone, there's actually a cycle, but we're not going to go into that. We're talking about the cycle of overall abuse and how to break this cycle of employer after employer, bullying after bullying. At some point, and now we move to step 2, the person who's being bullied is becoming desperate. Absolutely desperate to get away from the bully and the abuse. At this point, there's been some form of harm, psychological, mental, could be physical, usually because of the impacts to the mental health. It manifests in physical health issues. It trickles down in every area of a person's life. Truly, every area. The quality of the target's life has probably deteriorated significantly at this point. And this level of desperation comes into play. They have to get away. They could also be running against the clock, right? Who's going to get to the finish line first? Are they going to get fired first? Or are they going to make it out the door first? Right? Who's going to win that race? When someone is being bullied and they engage in a job search, it's often at a frenzied pace because of the very strong desire to get the heck out of there. It's absolutely not the same as someone who is really enjoying their job, has recently been doing some upskilling. They're not running away from something. They're running towards something. And that's one of the key differences, and something that I always tell my clients is let's make sure we're running towards something rather than running from, because that frenzied pace will lead to trouble down the road.
Not career advancement.
No, this is not this. This is we got to get out.
A replacement rather than an upgrade.
That's right. And so during this job search, targets typically experience what I call pre-euphoria as well as desperation.
Sounds deadly.
It's not good. Folks start to ruminate a lot about what awaits them, and They often think of it in terms of their dream scenario because they're comparing against their current reality. But also, it's also about the rumination of telling perhaps the bully directly, your imposter leader, or someone else altogether that they're finally getting the heck out of there. They create that moment of euphoria in their mind, and it's very powerful. And so, as part of this kind of fevered, what I call a fevered job search, we see the red flags. The red flags are there, but guess what? We rationalize them because in this particular moment when you're being abused at work, you think to yourself, surely nothing can be as bad as this. And so, despite the fact that there are red flags screaming at you, they're flying across the sky. Airplanes are going by with red flags behind them. We rationalize them because we need to get away. Okay, so now we're rationalizing this. So finally, we find this job, and yeah, it's not perfect. There's some problems there, but again, race to the finish line, rationalizing those red flags. Okay, you accept the job. That in of itself, the job switch, that's a strategy in and of itself that I like to talk about as a solution to this. But there's no strategizing typically as part of this cycle. So now you're entering this new job. Whoa ho. You're entering it, you're not well. Okay? You are probably depressed, have anxiety, maybe even panic attacks. Your nervous system is completely destroyed. You want to go on about a 3-month vacation by the beach, but you can't. And now you are in the throes of onboarding, which anyone who's onboarded to a job, it's a misery marathon. You're onboarding to a job, you're learning new systems, new names, you're developing relationships, you're setting expectations, you're doing all the things that come along with the new job, right? There's a book out there. Oh gosh, Cosmo, I forgot the name of the book. Maybe we'll find it and put it in the comment section. That's been written about how to make a splash or make the best impact in your first 90 days. Are you kidding me? No. First 90 days, we're barely hanging on. You're in constant fight or flight. Everything is a potential threat. You're in a state of hypervigilance, and we have to start being honest about these things. We are in a vulnerable state at the point where we're coming from abuse where they destroyed our confidence. We're questioning our skill level. Gosh, we're wondering, are we the imposters? What's going on here? So now all of a sudden, survival patterns kick in. And these are those behaviors that are not going to serve you. These are the ones that add on to that vulnerability. We start the people pleasing, the over accommodating. Oh, someone want to jump in on a project, and even though your body is screaming for a break and your brain is like, I can't handle one more piece of information. Next thing you know, you've got your hand in the air and you're saying, I'll do it. You're looking for that approval because of the aftershocks from what has happened. You're oversharing. You don't have a sense of your boundaries. You're still overwhelmed and exhausted. Okay? So none of that intentional work that we need to do when we enter this workplace, it's a big mess, right? We go from a Friday, we walk out the door of our last employer, and on a Monday, we're walking in the new one. That's insane. That's absolute craziness. For a person who's been bullied, we need time, and there isn't time. Okay? There's no time.
It would be like if you bought a new house, lived in it for half a year, and then bought a new one afterwards, right?
Yeah,
I mean, except that there's a lot more to it, but that's just like the span of time is so
short.
sudden.
It's sudden, it's jarring, and our bodies are rejecting what is happening right every day, what needs to happen every day. So now, as the time goes on, we start to do these behaviors and engage in behaviors that are not helping us. We're not able to take the time to heal. We're not able to do the work that we need to do to maybe think about, gosh, am I a people pleaser? Am I always over accommodating? Am I always the one jumping in? What about we're not doing that. We're just surviving. And suddenly there's those red flags. Remember those red flags in the sky? Oh, they suddenly come out to play. And suddenly they're before us. And we're starting to notice some things that are troublesome. Maybe we're seeing some behaviors from our new leader that, ooh, imposter leader signs are coming up. It's very confusing, and then that hypervigilance keeps kicking in because it's seeking safety. Your body and brain are seeking safety. Next thing you know, because of all of these things, it's this nasty combination. That vulnerable state. What do bullies look for? Bullies are looking for vulnerability. And next thing you know, they're after you. And before we even have a chance to catch our breath, we're being bullied again. Again, the situation we absolutely needed to avoid at all costs is now happening again. And we're thinking, what has gone wrong? And so for the person, for Lauri, pardon me, who sent this question this has been a cycle now for three different employers over the course of 6 years. What do we do to change it? That's a long cycle that I just shared, but let me break it down to 4 things that are competing, and this is why it's such a struggle. Number 1, after we're being bullied, we need to actually engage in intentional healing. And what that means for different people, that's a separate episode in and of itself, but suffice it to say, your nervous system is likely going to need help. You probably need some trauma-informed therapy, other support for that, as well as how has the bullying affected your entire life. I can guarantee you your entire life has been affected by the bullying in some way. And you kind of have to do a little bit of a life inventory to take stock of what has gone on here. You need to reconnect with your values. You need to focus on your health and wellness. So you've got intentional healing, which a lot of people, I know, they think they're resilient and they can just keep it moving. And I'm a firm believer that there are millions of people around this world walking around with trauma from workplace abuse, and they have actually no idea that they're carrying this with them. So we have to become aware of what is the harm that's been done. Okay, now we have the priority of actually onboarding to the new job. That is massive. Anybody who starts a new job knows that that's highly stressful. New people, new systems, and again, your body and brain are screaming for a break. This is so overwhelming. The next priority is navigating the aftershocks and the symptoms, or PTSD. A lot of people who have been bullied at work end up with PTSD. You have to get a diagnosis from a licensed therapist, of course, but I often call them aftershocks. And this is your nervous system. This is the hypervigilance, some of those behaviors that result from it. You're going to be experiencing these aftershocks in this new workplace, and a lot of people don't know what's happening, truly. But then the other priority, and this one's really tough because you're never to blame for being bullied, ever. You will never, ever, ever hear me say, what did you do to become the target of a bully? Absolutely not. With that said, we should ask the question, okay, are there things that I can do? Are there behaviors that I engage in that might make me vulnerable? Are there new behaviors that I need to learn to protect myself? Boundaries, right? Not engaging in people pleasing, not being that over accommodating, always being the one to fill the space or raise your hand. Those are just a few examples. And all of these 4 together, these competing priorities, that's all happening at the same time. How do you do that? How do you actually do that? This is why I talk a lot about the support huddle. Many people talk about it, I'm sure, as it relates to bullying, but I call it the support huddle, that you need to have a group of people around you who can help you, a protective service, and you've got this huddle of people around you protecting you, and every person has a different role. And within these different roles, they're all helping in a different way, right? You need a therapist, you need a workplace bullying expert, you need friends and family and loved ones who are kind and compassionate and caring. You might have lost your job because of bullying. There's more to the support huddle, but you need the support huddle so that you can have a plan. Most people don't have a plan. So to get back to the question, this lack of understanding all of these different components to what needs to happen and these pressures and demands and priorities, it's very confusing during a time when anyone who's been bullied knows all you want to do is lie on the couch and watch Netflix. You're tired.
Maybe with some Funyuns as well.
Yes, there you go.
Be a
With
good
some Funyuns,
addition.
you're exhausted. The last thing you want to do is, oh gosh, intentional healing. Okay, no, onboarding. What's the strategy? You have to have a plan and a strategy to tackle what comes next. On the mountaintop every day saying you need a strategy and a plan if you're being bullied. Do not wing it. When you're going through a life-changing event, you don't just go at it alone. You have to have support. That hopefully has provided context to, gosh, what goes on that leads to this cycle. And you can see all this going on. Now you're at that second job, you're being bullied again. Okay. What did you do this time? You might have gone to HR. You might have, then comes the secondary abuse. And here we go again with another job search in a frenzied way because we're a race against the clock. See how this cycle continues. I don't just help people who are actively being bullied. I work with people who are on the flip side of being bullied, and we work very, very hard on all four of these different components: the intentional healing, making sure they have the appropriate resources, the onboarding steps, the navigating the aftershocks, and implementing new protective behaviors. I don't know if I like the word protective, but I think you all understand the spirit of that phrasing. And then from there, I think the question was, what are we looking at in terms of how do we spot those warning signs? Well, you're talking to an anthropologist. The very first thing I'm going to tell you is stop talking. This from the person who's been talking this entire time. Stop talking and listen and observe. If you can be the person in that meeting who shows up, you say your hellos, your greetings, and you sit back and watch and observe, you are going to be amazed. Actions speak louder than words, and patterns of behaviors is where the truth exists. So the more you can observe and look for patterns, you're going to see things. Okay, so what are we looking for? Look for those controlling behaviors, micromanagement, nitpicking. Are we having to report quite often on what you're doing, your accomplishments during the day? What tasks are you completing? Are they having a lot of say in how you do your work, when you do your work? Do you have autonomy? Listen for that lack of respect, those belittling comments, right? Those drive-bys. I call them a drive-by comment. That is a snide remark, and they try and play it off as a joke, but it can dig deep. Listen for that condescension, any patronizing comments, any jokes that really aren't jokes. Okay, they're not jokes at all. They're very hurtful. You're looking for patterns of disrespectful behavior. Do you feel free to speak up and openly and share? Do you feel that there's that cloud of judgment in the air? Do you feel that things are personal? Are you feeling that people are gossiping? Those gossip mongers are very dangerous. And so there's all kinds of different red flags that they come in every form. As you know, bullying is a pattern. Okay, it's a pattern of intentional behavior that's meant to harm. And it happens over a period of time. So you can't call it bullying if it's just a one-off, right? And the thing is, if we work on those behaviors that perhaps put you in a vulnerable position, and those are behaviors a bully they could be blindfolded and they can sniff it out. Again, if we work on protecting yourself through some of those boundaries and other behaviors, when we see these things, we're prepared because we're not playing the game. You're prepped up and you know exactly how to handle these situations.
Just to provide my 2 cents briefly, is a lot of the process is not just recognizing the bullying patterns, but the patterns, how you respond to that. Alleviate the stress that comes along with that, and to be able to pivot and change your actions and your attitudes to better accommodate the situation at hand, which is what basically is what you're saying.
To add on one more thing to that is that your nervous system is screaming. That this is the thing that makes changing behaviors and makes advocating for yourself and standing up for yourself and all of these things is you're doing things different than you have in the past. What's the saying, Cosmo? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing again and again and expecting different results. And so I'm never, ever going to say that you're responsible for the person bullying you. Absolutely not. That said, we all have a responsibility to look inward and see, gosh, is there something I'm doing here that I can improve on? It's hard work. The clients I work with who do this type of work, it's really jarring and it's uncomfortable because we're changing behaviors, but it's incredibly impactful, and it works.
And that is how you disrupt the cycle of abuse. Thank you for providing your expertise to everyone, Lauri.
Thanks, Cosmo. Really appreciate it. Hope this was helpful. Thanks so much for tuning in to Work It Out with Lauri. If today's episode hit home at all, please share it with someone who needs it. And please remember, you deserve to work in peace. Oh, and hey, if you're listening and you're currently a target of a workplace bully and you need help, please feel free to schedule an initial consult with me. It's completely free and completely confidential. I've got your back.
And remember to follow this podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Substack. Plus, send us your story or your question at workplacebullyingproject.com.
We'll see you next time, and we'll work it out together.